and welcome to Behind the Bower. I'm Ryan Steffen with Bower Center for the Arts, and I'm so glad that you were joining us today. This podcast is your front row seat to the creative spirit of Bedford, where we explore the people, places, and projects shaping our local arts community. From visual artists and performers to educators and organizations making a difference, each episode brings you closer to the stories behind the work and the passion that fuels it all. Today, we are talking camp. This summer, Bower Center for the Arts hosted 5 different summer camps, which just wrapped up last week. I have with me Lauren Hood, our programs coordinator and head honcho for all things camp this summer, and 2 of our camp instructors, Bobbi Daniels and Kayla Zinski. Thank you all for joining me today. So let's just start by talking about camp. So Lauren, I'm going to put you on the spot first. Tell us a little bit in a broad sense about the camps that we held this summer.
Yeah, absolutely. So we had 5 camps. The themes were Safari Sketchers, Next Gen Artists, Thread Beads and Beyond, Once Upon an Art Camp, and our final one was Cosmic Colors. 4 out of the 5 were for age range 6 to 12. And then we had one that was strictly for middle and high school, and that was our Next Gen Artist Camp. We used to collaborate with Liberty Middle School for the past couple of years with this 21st Century grant where they would bring in their students and we would host them for a middle school art camp. Unfortunately, that grant ended. It was their last year. So this year we decided, hey, let's just host our own as Bower because we wanted to continue to support those growing artists and kind of like give a little bit more in-depth technique type of things for those students and offer that as well. So we did our Next Gen Artist Camps and it was a smash. So yeah, those were our little themes.
All right. So 5 different themes.
Yeah.
And we'll kind of talk a little bit about each one of them. So Safari Sketchers, what was the general idea behind Safari Sketchers?
General idea, safari animals. They did a lot of art projects with animals, creating their own animals, creating the environments they lived in, learned a bunch of different techniques with printmaking and painting, watercolor, things like that. So it's really cool.
Thank you. I feel like I should interrupt first. For those who don't know how the structure of camp works, we have a whole network of people that make our camps work over the summer. So a collection of instructors, a collection of counselors. In the mornings, those morning camps, we're going to have about 3 different instructors who are going to run sessions, and each group kind of rotates through those. So they get a variety of different art experiences with a variety of instructors. And Kayla, you were one of those instructors in a couple of those camps. So we'll talk to you about that in just a minute here. The second one that I want to talk about was Once Upon an Art Camp. What was that one a little bit about?
Yeah, so Once Upon an Art Camp was really focused on the animation of art and fantasy and things like that. And Kayla was a part of that one as well, so she can talk a little bit about it, what she did. But we had our 3 instructors, and they just really dove into that fantastical fantasy world and all of their different art forms. I know with Kayla, they did a ton of different stuff. I think they made like potions and necklaces and tiaras. One day maybe crowns and things like that, and it was just like really inventive ways. Like, these are the things that we do are not like, we don't just package them in a box. We don't go, to Oriental Trade and just buy a bunch of crafts to do. These are things that our instructors come up with, on their own in their free time. And like, they're really creative ways that they can create these different art pieces.
Yeah. So. One thing I could say, so last week was Cosmic Colors.
Yes.
Everything's planetary, moons and whatnot. I will say, and you all may agree with me, it was the loudest, messiest camp I have ever seen.
Yes.
One of the things I loved watching during that camp, and really kind of all the camps, is it wasn't a follow the directions kind of teaching. Right. It wasn't like, first you have to do this and then you have to do this. I really watched a lot of the instructors encouraging their students to explore, to figure things out, to experiment, to not necessarily follow step 1, step 2, step 3, but to discover art and discover creativity kind of in their own realm and in their own idea. And then the last one that we didn't talk, well, there's Thread Beads and Beyond, which was everything fabric.
Yes.
We had a really cool partnership with that too. Our exhibits coordinator kind of lined up a little corner that the students in that camp were able to have a little mini exhibit during our Fiber Arts exhibit, which is still going on right now. And many of those pieces are actually still hanging there. So pieces that they did with threads and fabric and fiber arts, that they got to feel like a little part of the big show.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one was next gen artists, and
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of a different thing. So can you talk a little bit about how that one worked?
Yeah, so like I said, that one was the middle and high school only camp. So typically our camps are for 6 to 12-year-olds. This one was for 6th grade through 12th grade. So we had a wide range of students enjoy that one, and we did. Let me see, they did plein air art. So we are located right next to the Wharton Garden, which is this beautiful garden. And so the students went outside and spread out in these different spaces, and they drew what they saw outside. And then they came back in. And I know that she also worked on not only doing that plein air drawing, but then turning it into a watercolor painting. So that was really cool. They also got to do a little bit of basic mosaics with our instructor, Peggy. So that was really awesome. I don't think that we've ever offered mosaics in a camp, at least as long as I've been there. And if it has been, it's been paper, but they got to do like actual glass tile mosaics with safety, of course. And that was really exciting. We had a lot of students that were very interested in that, would stay extra to work on their projects. And then so those were some of our activities, and they were just kind of in depth for what we did, a little bit different, a little bit of a next level type of thing than what we would do with our younger students.
Yeah, the mosaics were cool to watch. I don't know if
Yes.
I've ever seen young people get to work with mosaic tiles.
Yeah.
And if you've never been to the mosaic room in the Bauer Center, we have a lot of tiles to pick from. So it was cool that they got to work with that. New this year, with support from Centra, we were able to also offer a program called the Art Explorers.
Yeah.
Art Explorers was an afternoon camp. It was an additional camp, an additional experience you get out on for kind of minimal money. And we had kind of a different approach to explorers. How would you explain that approach?
Yeah, absolutely. So normally, like we had talked about in the mornings, we have our 3 sessions. It's very schedule oriented and structured like that. But for our Art Explorers, it ran from 1 to 4 p.m. and it was just like a post camp programming. It was a very open schedule, where what we did was we had 45 minutes of free expression time. So our students were allowed to draw, relax, kind of get into that transition period. And then we had 2 hours where to include transition and the participation of our walking field trips. So we did field trips throughout our community. We walked over to the Bedford Urban Garden one day, walked over to Noteworthy Music Company. We did a collaboration with the Next Gen artists, and that afternoon with Bedford Get Together, and walked over to the large mural downtown. So those are just some of the places that we would walk our students over to. So we'd have 2 hours of that. Then we'd come back and take the inspiration from those community organizations that we learned about and create an art piece, a collaborative art piece that all of the students would work on together. So it wasn't just every student working on their own project. It was they would work on this one giant piece of art together.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. And those pieces are really cool. Most of them still around the Bauer Center or permanent fixtures of the Bauer Center, or soon to be permanent fixtures of the Bauer Center. So I also have with us today, I know Lauren, you got to dominate the first 10 minutes here. I also have 2 of our camp counselors with us today, our camp instructors, not counselors. So the instructors were in charge of leading instruction. So let's just take a quick second and have both of you introduce yourselves. So I'll start with you, Bobbi. Just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I'm Bobbi Daniels. I am one of the 2 art teachers at Stanton River High School, and I'm on the board of directors at the Bauer Center. So I went to Virginia Tech for fine art and found myself back in Bedford afterwards, and I've been enjoying giving back to the community and working with the youth of Bedford in many different ways.
All right. How about you, Kayla?
Hi, I'm Kayla Zinski. I'm a little bit new to the scene. I am doing I'm an instructional assistant at the Madison Heights Elementary School. I'm also an artist who does portraiture. And I don't know, I really enjoyed working with the kids this past year, and I really enjoyed working with them creatively. And I kind of wanted to find an outlet where I could really embrace that.
So how did both of you, I know, Bobbi, we twisted your arm a little bit, but how did both of you find this opportunity to be instructors at camp this summer? What made you decide to do it?
Well, Lauren reached out to all of the board members looking for instructors, and I felt, why not? I'm off work for the summer. I would love to work more closely with the Bauer Center besides my role just on the board. And I also asked Lauren to put together like a sort of like elevator pitch as to what she wanted, people to understand about the job as an instructor. And I sent that out to my school. So all my coworkers were given the opportunity to be an instructor as well. And I think we had a handful actually show up and do the job, which was great. So Ryan did not have to twist my arm too much. I was interested, and it was really fun.
Yeah. How about you, Kayla?
For me, it was kind of like incidental. It was a friend of a friend. We were doing art together in her studio, and she mentioned that she also worked at the Bowers Art Center and that they were looking for instructors. So I was like, why not? I'll try it out.
All right. Both of you were involved in very different parts of the program. So, Bobbi, you were one of the instructors for the Art Explorers program, specifically the Next Gen program. And you, Kayla, were a morning instructor for 2 different camps. So let's start with Bobbi. Bobbi, tell us a little bit about what you did in your camp, and specifically what was that large project or large collaborative piece you worked on at the end?
So our camp, the Next Gen Artist, was the older camp group, and we had a walking field trip over to the mural in downtown Bedford that honors service members and military members in the Bedford community. And the Bedford Get Together, some of their board members came and gave us a little bit of background and story about how they came to the conclusion that they wanted to do a mural, what the timeline was like, what the process was like, and it was a lot. They did a lot of work to get that mural together. And we heard from them. Then we went back and we reflected. And then the next day, the artist group Tandem Arts came to the Bauer Center, and we got to have a Q&A with them. They told us about their art, the kind of art they make, how they got into murals. It was really wonderful to hear from them. And as the group project, our students made their own mural. And I want to say our theme was just art in Bedford, which gave them a lot of room to form their own ideas about what art in Bedford is and what that means to them. And it kind of just like was an open enough idea that we weren't pigeonholing them into something specific. So we had like a huge variety of ideas from these kids that we had to kind of narrow down and draw in. But I mean, every idea was wonderful, and we wanted to include as many as we could. We ended up creating a 3-panel mural that is going to be hung on the backside of the Bauer Center.
Yeah, that actually will be unveiled on August 9th.
Yeah.
During our Cab Kids program. That's how we're going to launch the whole day. So right now we're just at the point where we have to put the seal coat on, and then Des and I have Des Black, who is our facilities manager, have to figure out how we're going to get it hung up. So he's ready to go. Lauren and I just have to get it all sealed up and ready to go. It's going to hang in the back of the building, right above the flower garden. If you've driven by the Bauer Center at all recently, the flower garden was another project from a different explorers camp, where they worked with Bedford Urban Garden. They painted the flowers, the flower space, and then filled it with plants. It's a gorgeous addition to the back of the building. It looks really cool as you're driving down Bedford Avenue. All right, Kayla, you did lots of things. I'm not going to lie. I had the joy of being close to Kayla when she was teaching. My desk is just right up the stairs, so I could often hear them laughing. I could hear them having fun. I could hear them doing all kinds of things. And anytime I would pass by the room, they would swarm me to show me what they had done.
That's true.
So tell us a little bit. I know you probably can't talk about every single project you did, but what were some of the most favorite things that you helped them figure out and help them work on?
I think for Once Upon an Art Camp, the potion making is something that kind of hit with them quite a bit. Because in both of my camps, I really wanted to let them like see the process of creating art, show them that it was something like accessible to them. And then also part of it was like trust the process, because a lot of kids really like the instant gratification of art, and I want to show them like, hey, like you can take your time and explore and really create something that you enjoy. But yeah, the potion making, they got to mix their colors. That was one thing they came up to me and was like, "Are we allowed to mix colors?" And it's like, "Yes, of course."
As
And
long
they
as you don't make too much of a mess and you don't break
no,
anything.
exactly, exactly. And they wwere able to. They'd come up and be like, "Well, how do I make like blue green?" And it's like, "Well, let's like think about what colors we might need to add," because this branched over to our other project when we made slime. And I really tried to challenge them when we made slime. I only gave them red, yellow, and blue. And I explained to each group that those are the three main colors and three primary colors. And you can create just about any other color with just those three. So they come up and be like, well, how about blue green? Or how do I make pink? And it was really cool walking them through it of like, well, let's experiment. Let's add a drop of something and let's see what happens. And let's add a drop of something else and then see how that color changes. And I had some of the kids coming up. I know one was like, yeah, I had a really pretty blue. And I was like, oh, that is such a nice blue. And they're like, I added just one drop of red. And it was just such a cool moment of like, yeah, there is reds inside of blues. And it creates a completely, it's still blue, but it's a deeper blue. It's a different blue. That was kind of the main theme of a lot of the crafts was I want them to explore and see how art is can surprise them.
Yeah, Slime Day was definitely a favorite day for them.
Oh my goodness.
They
yes.
loved getting their hands all over it. They loved making us get our hands inside of it. I would laugh because they'd be like, look what happens when I do this. So they would have some slime and they would take glitter, and there was lots of glitter this summer.
Oh my
And
goodness.
they would take some glitter and be like, look what happens when I put glitter in this. Do you want to hold it? Do you want to like it was so funny to see how joyful they were about what they could create. I think you brought some really fun projects and some really fun exploratory ideas for them to just kind of figure things out.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of that, I've talked a couple times about some of my favorite moments, the swarming of the kids, how they want to come show me things. What are some of y'all's favorite moments that you can remember from camp, or maybe funny, or maybe significant as an educator? What are some moments that you remember?
Well, day one, when I walked into the afternoon camp, like all the kids already knew each other. They were already in their groups at tables. They were talking, drawing, and, having a good time settling in after lunch. And some of the kids were playing with dominoes. And I am an avid dominoes lover. My grandmother played with me when I was a kid, and I've been playing ever since. So they were just, setting them up to knock them down. And I was like, there's actually many games you can play with dominoes. And I know how to play bones. So I taught them how to play bones. And every day after that, there were kids set up playing bones together. And, it just took off, and that's all they wanted to do at some points. They were like, wait, can we finish our game? It's like, no, the speakers are here. We have to be respectful and give them our attention. It was just really sweet to see, something that my grandmother, of all people, taught me, being very interesting and fun to these kids. Because, some days I'm like, kids just only want to play on their phones. But, the game that me and my grandma played together,
Yeah.
they loved it. It was so cute to see them play every day.
And for me, it was the storytelling aspect that kind of when you see a kid open up and really interact with what they're working with, that I always found to me that was one of the big highlights is they start working on their craft, and then next thing you know they're telling a story about what does this potion do, what does this slime do, who owns it. And I was trying to push them here and there, keep it open-ended where they had room to build those characters. When we made tiaras, I gave especially the older kids who's wearing your hat. And it was really cool where that art kind of transferred into play, where now they're playing with their art. And yeah, and I saw that theme throughout. I don't know, I'm still finding my groove, but it was cool seeing that develop throughout. We're seeing the kids open up, and then now they're laughing, right? They're swarming and saying, this is this, and this is that. Yeah.
Yeah. Lauren, how about you? You're looking at it from the outside often, but what were some of your favorite moments?
Yeah, I think just getting to be involved in art explorers as a whole, because for me, like you said, like I am looking from the outside in, like I trust my instructors and my counselors to take care of my kids in the mornings, and they build those relationships with them. And like in the past, I have kind of almost been like the kids refer to me as the principal. Like I walk in, they're like, it's the principal.
Oh, you have to talk to you and they get in trouble.
Yes. So I'm the principal. And so I remember like on the first week of camp, I was telling my dad about this because he also works in the school system. And so I was like, yeah, I walked in and like the conversation stopped. And because like you said, like the kids come to me when they're in trouble and I'm like the principal and like, I'm just like this big authority figure somehow. And so being with art explorers where I was with those students like for the 4 hours and I was developing those relationships and I was getting to know more of them and like their why they loved art and just them as students, and I could see like kind of that wall fall down. So then I would come into the room and like kids would be showing me their art and like want to actually talk to me. And like it felt nice. And so I really, really enjoyed getting to build actual relationships with the students this summer through the art explorers.
So one theme that I've heard all three of you talk about that I think is really, really important for us to mention is that art does bring community. Mm-hmm. These are kids who are maybe not necessarily soccer players or not necessarily dancers or not necessarily into any other organized event, but art is their thing. And to find people and to build relationships and to build a community where they're excited to come play dominoes with each other, or they want to tell a story, or they start building off a story. Or, one of the moments I remember in the slime situation is we had 3 different kids all working together on one slime project and saying, what happens if it does this? And just talking over each other to talk to me and to try to explain what they're doing and just seeing how much fun they have together. Mm-hmm. Sometimes summer can be isolating for a lot of kids. Their network and their people are in school. And I know 3 of the people at this table are educators or former educators or in the education system. And we know how lonely summers can be for those kids because we've all been in the classroom on the first day of school. Yeah. And they don't want to have anything to do with school because some of them haven't seen each other for 3 months. Mm-hmm. And so I do love that our camps give kids a social outlet and a social opportunity to be creative, but to also just be kids. Mm-hmm. Like I know at one point somebody made a mess and they looked at me and they're like, I'm sorry. And I'm like, just clean it up. I'm not mad. I think that, they were worried about it at first. But I think that they realized that the Bauer Center in general is a place where they're going to be accepted, where they're going to have friends and community, and they're going to have adults supporting that creativity and community. Mm-hmm. So we're all reflective. And I would love to find out, like, if you could do it again, what would you do differently? Or what would you change next year to make it better? I didn't give them time to think about that question. So everybody's got thinking brains on right now.
Well, I would say just the group projects that we did in the after camp art explorers, I thought were really important in teaching kids teamwork and communication, as well as like play and exploring ideas and supporting each other in their ideas. And also they had to, at some points, like explain their ideas, and getting up in front of your peers and talking about that could be difficult for some kids. So seeing those things taking place, I thought was really important. And I would love to see that again next year, as well as the projects that sort of add to the Bauer Center, like the mural and the flower box, the garden, because that one gives them ownership of the space, and that allows them to say, hey, that's my flower bed that I worked on last summer, and they can, still see that it's there and it's part of the community. And it gives them, I guess, just a sense of, I don't know, I said ownership before, but, it gives them a sense of belonging and saying, like, I worked on this, I can see the end result, the product is there, and it makes them proud. And it also makes the Bauer Center more beautiful. I mean, why would we not want kids to make murals that stay in our building.
Yeah.
So seeing projects where the kids take ownership of a space and also beautify the space, I think is going to be something important to continue to do for our summer camps.
Yeah, because we want them to feel like the Bower is their space.
Yes, absolutely.
And so to have pride as you're driving down the street to say, hey, I painted that.
Mhm.
That tree was mine, or that
Yeah.
flower was mine, or I picked that plant.
Yes.
I think that is really important for them as they drive by the space to be able to say, whoever they're with, I did part of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when I did that.
Oh, yeah.
How about you, Kayla?
I'd say having ownership of the space is definitely a huge one. Me coming from like a artist perspective, I love seeing them like eventually create like a sense of ownership with the materials that they're using, and in the future, I guess it would be pacing of I would like to see if I can't create like a common theme throughout that shows like, and there was a common theme throughout, but of course it's always like, oh, well, it could have been a little smoother. It could have been, and it's all different depending on the children, but just seeing them try new mediums that like they've never tried before and then realizing, hey, this isn't as like so different from something else that I've already done. Because a lot of times they can get very intimidated when something's put in front of them that's like they have never done. Like slime was a huge one of they had never created slime before. But when you start creating slime, you start realizing, oh, this is similar to like potions, or this is similar to the paint stamps that we did at the beginning of the week, or even the tie-dye, where it's just we're mixing colors and we're dealing with different textures. And that's something I want to bring through in the future is continuing that streak of let's try different materials and let's trust the process and see how there's so many different common threads between these different materials.
Yeah, I feel like I've maybe started to answer this question if you listen to the last 10 or 15 minutes. But my next one's for Lauren. So you've been with us for a couple of years, and you've watched camps grow. So they started small, maybe just a handful of kids.
Yeah.
And this year was not a handful of kids.
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we had a little over 100 students join us this year. Some were returning students from the past years, but we had a lot of new faces, which I love to see because we got friends inviting friends. So yeah, it was really awesome to see that grow.
Yeah, well, and so, I do know that there's been several times where like, well, this kid came last year, this one came last year, or this one was in camp already twice this year, and this is their third time. What do you think it is that keeps them coming back?
Jeez. Honestly, I think it's what I talked about earlier. It's like it's not a packaged art craft thing. Like this is not crafts. We are giving like a true art education in the most fun way and just a very creative and free and fun way. It's not like as structured as an art class in school, but it's not as, basic and cookie cutter as, just going to, just getting a craft from your store or something like that. Like it is free and creative and it's energetic. It's so energetic in the center during camps, and it can be a little chaotic, but like I love that. I love the energy that it brings to the camps. So it's energetic. It's not all quiet and sitting down. Like the kids are talking and communicating and laughing and having a great time and getting their hands dirty. And so I think that's what it brings is it's an art experience and an art education in the most creative and chaotic and fun way possible.
Yeah. So you do wear lots of hats as program coordinator. You cover lots of things.
Yeah.
But in talking to you, what I've learned is your heart's with the kids.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the ones you love the most. That's the programming you love the most.
Yeah.
So what do you dream camps to look like in the future? With unlimited funds, unlimited resources, what would you love camp to look like in the future?
Oh, gosh. I think this year with the Art Explorers and extending our camp, I think that's just the beginning. I really loved having the students all day. I loved like the 2-part aspect. I loved engaging our community with it. So I think really growing and developing the Art Explorers post-camp and hopefully getting more students involved in that, because I would love to see that as engaged with as our morning camps. And continuing that education, this year, actually, what was different about what we've had with past years is we had a lot of older students. So usually we do 6 to 12, like I talked about for the 4 camps. We usually have like our biggest age range is 6 to 8. We had a ton of 9 to 12-year-olds join this year. And that like blew my mind, and I absolutely loved it. And so I want to continue to grow that community with the older students, keep our younger students, coming back and joining and bringing their friends. But I want to let the older students know, like it is for you too. Like there is space for you too. There is a camp just for you. There's, space for us space for you guys in our 6 to 12-year-old groups. You're with your peers. So continuing to grow that age range, keeping our younger kids and growing the art explorers for the future. Like this is just the beginning. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I mean, I love to think that we are creating at a young age, both artists and consumers of art. And those, for me, those are my biggest goals. Of course, I want them to be artists, whether that is doodling in a sketchbook or submitting to exhibits all across the country. I also want them to see and appreciate that that it is art. Yep. I'm going to guess many of them in the example of the mural had never really thought that hard about what that mural was and what it took to make it happen, and the thought and the artistry that made it happen. And though it might have been a small pocket of kids who saw that, they have a very different understanding and appreciation. And if I know anything about kids, they're going to tell everybody they know when they walk by it, everything they know about that, because they know something that somebody else doesn't. And I do love seeing that we're growing this community of artists and art consumers. I just looked at the time; we're really over. So I'm gonna finish up with my one last question. I've been asking this, and for you all, it's going to be a 2-part. I've been asking everybody at the end of the podcast, why is art important? It's 2-part for you because I want to know why is art important to kids, and why is art important to you? So let's start with kids first and just kind of go around the table. Why do you think art is important for kids? Anybody can start.
I definitely think it's important for kids as like a form of self-discovery and a form of self-expression. You can tell, and this is from working in the public school system, right, where they're not always encouraged to like kind of form their own paths. There's some of that, but a lot of times it's very structured, and it's something that they just kind of have to fit into. And I think art is so important for them here, where it's like they get to kind of make their own thing. They get to choose, I'm interested in this, so I want to do it this way, or I want to do it that way. It's a huge creative outlet. It's a huge area of freedom that I can see for them, of self-expression.
Thank you.
Yeah, to piggyback off of what Kayla's saying, especially in the world of education, it's an emotional outlet as well. It's a way to understand things that they can't really put their finger on. Like, why am I feeling mad? Well, maybe if I sit in watercolor for a little bit, I'll have a better understanding. I'll be able to calm down. And I have an outlet now that helps me deal with hard emotions, instead of just choosing to not understand them at all. But then also in education, you are specifically, I would say, in math, which was my least favorite subject in school, go figure. You're told you follow the equation, you get the correct answer, that's it. And if you get the wrong answer, you did something wrong. Whereas in art, there's never a wrong answer unless you just choose to not care about it, which is what I tell my students all the time. I'm like, as long as you care, you put an effort, this is the correct answer. So I feel like you're giving kids a way to step outside of the brain of getting the correct answer, and you're giving them a way to express emotions and feelings and themselves as well. So it's very important to kids. And I think it will continue to be important to kids. I hate to see a day where art is not important for kids.
Yeah. How about you, Lauren?
I think it's kind of Everything that they said, 110%. I also believe in the underlying thing that we talked about, which is community built. Like we said, like these students could be into sports, but they could not be. And so, sports has their community, and the arts also brings in a different community for those students. Who may feel a little bit on the outside, who may not, have that support. And so I believe that there is just a great community in there for them as they, from kindergarten through 12th grade through adulthood. So, yeah.
All right. And so the second half of that, and it doesn't have to be to you, but I'm just going to say, why is art important, or why does art matter?
For me, I've always held true to the idea that art is, at its basic form, communication. Be it communication to yourself or communication to others, or even a form of communication with your materials. That's something that I've always held to me as I create my art, that I am exploring myself, or sometimes it does go into exploring your audience. I do portraiture for people, and a lot of times it's for pets, and I do some for like deceased pets, and it's listening to stories about these pets and personalities and all the things that they've loved and cherished about their lifelong friend who's now passed. And it's I don't know, it's communicating something to them of, I hear you, and um I see that this friend deserves like the care and the respect. I guess it's long-winded to say it is. I use it as a form of communication.
Yeah, I think that totally agree with everything you say, that, art is a form of storytelling. It's a way to communicate with people, and it's also a way to hear back from your audience, because everyone can have their own relationship with art. You may make something with one intention, and if you get that intention across, that's awesome. But it's also great to hear what other people relate to within your work, that may not be something that was intentional when you were making it. But being able to tell a story, I always think that art is storytelling without words. It's a way to say things that you can't find the words for. And I feel like it's important because it does bring people together. It's existed for as long as time has existed. People have always found ways to express and create, and it's just a way for the world to come together, I think, and that's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, no, I agree 100%. I actually am not a visual artist like these two lovely ladies. I grew up in the performing arts, so mine was a little different. I used it as a form of expression. I was very shy growing up, and so like having an outlet on the stage where I didn't have to be myself, I could play this character and portray what I was feeling internally. That was really important for me, and still continues to be important for me, as someone who is a little bit more introverted. So I would, say that's why the performing arts and the visual arts, I know that the visual arts do that for you guys. And so that's why it's important for me.
All right. Thank you. All right. So thank you so much for joining us, our conversation, Bobbi, Kayla, and Lauren. Summer camps are an integral part of meeting the major pillars of our Bauer mission to make arts accessible for our community, to be a creative force, and to be an educational resource. So camps do all of that and more. And the creative energy in that building is contagious, though also very noisy and messy. Art is often that, creative and messy. So we're happy to be an outlet for the young folks in our community to be both. As I close, don't forget that there's always something happening at the Bauer Center for the Arts for people of all ages. On August 7th, we'll be hosting our next Bauer After Hours. It's salsa dancing, and if you don't know how to salsa dance, don't worry. Our friends from Lynchburg Salsa will teach you. Then our next Cab Kids Free Family Art Day is just around the corner that weekend as well, Saturday, August 9th from 12 until 2, along with the unveiling of the mural. The fourth biennial National Juried Fiber Arts exhibition will still be in our galleries through August 9th. The Art of Pairing, Moonshine and Martinis is coming up on October 18th. Keep your eye on the website for more information about that. And finally, we have several concerts coming up this year still. Lenny Marcus Jazz Trio in September, New Standard Bluegrass in November, and 2 concerts in December, Kinfolk and Christmas Cabaret with a Twist with Wing Creasy and C.W. Markham. For more information and tickets on all of our events, they are available on the website. And that's just a bit of what the Bauer Center offers. To register and get more details on all of our classes, events, programs, outreach initiatives, and exhibitions, visit bowercenter.org and follow us on Facebook. Thank you for listening, and we will see you all next week.